I'm Lucy Turner, and I should have known this rally would go to hell. The microphone screeched feedback as another protester hurled accusations about my environmental record. 20 years in Louisiana politics taught me to smile through chaos. But these weren't ordinary hecklers. They wanted blood. Senator Turner sold our wetlands to oil companies. The bearded man shoved closer to the stage. What's next? Our children's futures? Security moved fast. I kept my expression neutral, blue blazer pristine despite the humid New Orleans heat. Never let them see you sweat. Never let them win. Thank you for your passion, I said into the microphone. Democracy thrives on debate. The crowd erupted again. I signaled my campaign manager, then walked off stage with measured steps. Outside, rain hammered the parking lot like bullets. My convoy was waiting. 3 black SUVs, engines running. I slid into the middle vehicle as thunder shook the windows. How bad was it? Asked my driver, Marcus. Typical Tuesday. I checked my phone. 17 missed calls from donors. Let's get to the hotel. We were 20 minutes out when the first SUV pulled over. Flat tire. In this weather, naturally. I stepped out despite Marcus's protests. Rain soaked through my blazer immediately, but I couldn't hide in the car while my team worked. That's not leadership. The woman changing her own tire 50 feet ahead caught my attention. Brunette hair plastered to her skull, green eyes fierce with determination. She wore cargo pants and a soaked t-shirt that clung to her athletic frame. No wedding ring. She cursed creatively at her stubborn lug nuts. Need help? I called out, approaching despite the downpour. She looked up, surprised. Recognition flashed across her face. Senator Lucy Turner? She wiped muddy hands on her jeans. I'm Skylar Cook, and yes, I need help. This damn tire won't budge. Skylar Cook. The name clicked. The war correspondent. I read your Syria pieces. You actually read news? Her laugh was musical despite the sarcasm. I grabbed the tire iron from my trunk. Sometimes politicians consume media beyond poll numbers. Shocking. But she smiled, handing me the spare. You know, most senators would send their security team. Most senators never changed a tire in their lives. I positioned the jack properly. My daddy taught me before I could drive. We worked in comfortable silence, rain creating an odd intimacy. Her hands were strong, calloused from real work. When our fingers brushed passing tools, electricity shot through me. Not the political kind. There. I tightened the final lug nut. Should hold until you reach town. Thank you. Skylar stood close enough that I caught her scent beneath the rain. Something clean and honest. I owe you one. No debts between professionals. But I didn't step back. Those green eyes held mine longer than politeness required. Maybe I could buy you coffee sometime. Her voice carried an undertone I couldn't quite read. Off the record. Thunder crashed overhead, but I barely noticed. This woman intrigued me in ways that had nothing to do with politics. I'd like that, I heard myself say. She smiled, genuinely this time. I'll call your office. As she drove away, I stood in the rain longer than necessary, watching her taillights disappear. Marcus honked impatiently from our vehicle. Something had shifted during those 20 minutes, something that felt both dangerous and inevitable. I climbed back into the SUV, mind racing with possibilities I hadn't considered in years. The protesters at the rally seemed like distant history now. All I could think about was coffee with Skylar Cook. Everything okay, Senator? Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. Fine. I watched raindrops race down the window. Just fine. 3 days later, Skylar called. That coffee offer still standing? Her voice was different over the phone. Softer somehow. Absolutely. I closed my office door, surprising myself with how eager I sounded. When works for you? Now, if you're free. I'm at Café du Monde. 20 minutes later, I found her at a corner table, laptop open, typing furiously. She traded cargo pants for dark jeans and a fitted green sweater that matched her eyes perfectly. Professional, but approachable. Working hard? I slid into the opposite chair. Always. She closed the laptop. Thanks for coming. Wasn't sure you would. Why wouldn't I? Politicians usually avoid journalists unless cameras are rolling. I ordered café au lait, studying her face. Sharp cheekbones, intelligent eyes, lips that curve naturally upward, beautiful in an understated way. You're not most journalists, I said. And you're not most politicians. She leaned forward. That tire change proved it. Most would have stayed dry in their limo. SUV. And I don't like watching others do work I can handle myself. Control issues? Efficiency. But her directness made me smile. What about you? Most war correspondents don't cover small-town political rallies. Her expression shifted. I'm investigating something. Local angle to a bigger story. Warning bells rang in my head. What kind of story? Government contracts, environmental permits, money changing hands. She watched my reaction carefully. Your name came up in some documents. The coffee turned bitter on my tongue. My name appears on lots of documents. I'm a senator. These are different. Offshore drilling leases. Companies with questionable environmental records getting fast-track approvals. I support responsible energy development. The practiced response came automatically. Responsible? Her eyes hardened. Like the spill 3 years ago? Or the wetlands destruction last summer? Those were unfortunate incidents. Unfortunate? She laughed, but it wasn't musical this time. Tell that to the fishing families who lost their livelihoods. Heat rose in my chest. Easy criticism from someone who parachutes into disasters for headlines then disappears. At least I tell the truth about what I see. And I don't? Do you? The question hung between us like a challenge. I stood abruptly. This was a mistake. Lucy, wait. She caught my wrist. Her touch sent that same electricity through me. I didn't mean to attack you personally. Didn't you? But I sat back down, pulled by something stronger than anger. I'm trying to understand you. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. The woman who changes tires in the rain doesn't match the senator who rubber stamps oil permits. Maybe you don't know either version well enough to judge. Then help me understand. The vulnerability in her voice surprised me. This wasn't journalistic manipulation. This was something else entirely. It's complicated, I said finally. Most important things are. Our eyes met across the small table. The cafe noise faded around us. I felt exposed under her gaze, like she could see past every political mask I wore. You're dangerous, I whispered. Why? Because you make me want to tell you the truth. Something shifted in her expression. The professional distance dissolved, replaced by something warmer, more personal. Would that be so terrible? Before I could answer, she leaned across the table. Her hand touched my cheek, thumb tracing my jawline. I should have pulled away. Should have remembered where we were, who might be watching. Instead, I closed my eyes and leaned into her touch. When her lips met mine, the kiss was soft, questioning. I answered by deepening it, my hand finding the back of her neck. She tasted like coffee and possibilities. We broke apart as applause erupted from a nearby table. A tourist couple smiled at us, the woman giving a thumbs up. Well, Schuyler said breathlessly. That escalated quickly. I touched my lips, still feeling the warmth of hers. We should go. Your place or mine? The question sent heat through my entire body. This is insane. Probably. Her smile was devastating. Your place or mine? We went to my office. The state capitol building was nearly empty at 8 p.m., security guards nodding respectfully as I swiped my keycard. Schuyler followed silently, her presence behind me electric and dangerous. Impressive digs, she said, taking in my corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Mississippi River. Awards and photos lined the mahogany walls. 20 years of climbing, I said, closing the door. The click echoed louder than it should have. Hurricane warnings scrolled across my television screen. Weather maps showed a massive system churning toward the Gulf Coast. Red zones expanded by the hour, emergency protocols activating across 3 states. How bad is this one? Schuyler moved to the window, watching evening news crews set up in the plaza below. Category 3, possibly 4 by landfall. I joined her, our shoulders touching. Mandatory evacuations start tomorrow. You've handled these before. Too many. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me. Thousands of lives depending on decisions I'd make in the next 48 hours. Each one feels like the first time. She turned to face me. You're scared. Terrified, I admitted. But I can't show it. Not to my staff, not to the media, not to voters counting on me to keep them safe. You can show me. Something in her voice broke through my defenses. The careful control I'd maintained for decades cracked open. Before I could stop myself, tears spilled down my cheeks. Skylar's arms wrapped around me immediately. I buried my face against her neck, breathing in her clean scent, letting her strength support me for just a moment. I've got you, she whispered against my hair. When I lifted my head, our faces were inches apart. Her green eyes searched mine, asking permission. I answered by pulling her closer, claiming her mouth with desperate hunger. This kiss was different from the cafe. Urgent. Raw. Filled with need I'd suppressed for years. Her hands tangled in my blonde hair, holding me against her like I might disappear. I backed her toward my desk, scattering papers and emergency briefings. She gasped as I lifted her onto the surface, stepping between her legs. Her fingers worked at my blazer buttons while I traced the curve of her neck with my lips. Lucy. My name came out breathless, broken. Are you sure? I haven't been sure about anything in years. I found the hem of her sweater, sliding my hands underneath to discover warm skin. But this feels right. She pulled back long enough to search my eyes, then nodded. What followed was tender and fierce simultaneously, two women finding connection amid approaching chaos. Her touch erased every political calculation, every careful image, leaving only truth between us. Afterward, we lay entwined on my office couch, watching storm updates on muted television. Lightning illuminated the river outside, nature's preview of coming destruction. This complicates things, I said quietly. Everything worthwhile is complicated. Skylar traced patterns on my bare shoulder. Question is whether you can handle complicated. Can you? Dating a politician isn't exactly career neutral for a journalist. She was quiet for a long moment. My editor called this afternoon, wants me to dig deeper into those environmental permits. Ice formed in my stomach. And you said? That I'd follow the story wherever it leads. Even if it leads to me? She sat up, meeting my eyes directly. Especially if it leads to you. The honesty hurt more than deception would have. This wasn't pillow talk or empty promises. This was professional integrity colliding with personal desire. I could destroy your career, I said. You could. Her smile was sad but determined. Or you could trust me to find the truth, whatever that means for both of us. Thunder crashed overhead, shaking the windows. The storm was coming whether we were ready or not, just like everything else in my carefully controlled life was about to change. My phone buzzed with emergency alerts. Mandatory evacuation orders, shelter preparations, media briefings. The next 72 hours would test every system we'd built to protect Louisiana from nature's fury. I have to go, I said, reluctantly reaching for my clothes. I know. Skylar dressed quickly, professionally, transforming back into the war correspondent who'd covered disasters across 3 continents. But Lucy? Yeah? When this storm passes, we need to talk, really talk, about what this means. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Outside, wind howled through the empty plaza, carrying the smell of rain and change. Morning came too soon, dragging reality with it. I woke alone in my apartment, silk sheets tangled around my legs. Skylar was gone, leaving only her scent on my pillow and a text message, emergency meeting at network. Call you later. The shower couldn't wash away the memory of her hands on my skin. Every news briefing, every hurricane update became background noise to replaying last night in vivid detail. My campaign manager, David, burst into my office at 9 sharp. His face looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. We have a problem. He dropped a manila folder on my desk. Big damn problem. Inside were photographs. Skylar entering the Capitol building. My car in the parking garage. Timestamps showing she left after midnight. The images were grainy but unmistakable. Where did these come from? Anonymous tip to the Times-Picayune. They're sitting on the story for now, but Johnson's people have copies. Richard Johnson, my opponent in next month's election, the man who'd spent 6 months painting me as out of touch with Louisiana values. These photos would be his golden ticket. How bad? Career-ending bad. Single woman senator spotted with mysterious brunette during hurricane crisis. The narrative writes itself. I stared at the photos, remembering Schuyler's mouth against mine, her whispered confessions in the darkness. 20 years of careful image management destroyed in one reckless night. What do you recommend? Cut all contact. Issue a statement about focusing on hurricane relief. Distance yourself completely. The words felt like glass in my throat. And if she calls? She doesn't exist. Not until after the election. My phone buzzed. Schuyler's name appeared on the screen. David reached for it, but I pulled back. Give me a minute. Lucy, don't... Out. My voice carried enough authority to send him retreating. I answered on the 4th ring. Hey. Hey yourself. Schuyler's voice was tight, professional. We need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Meet me at Jackson Square in an hour. The line went dead. I sat staring at my phone, caught between desire and duty. Everything I'd built balanced on this moment's choice. Jackson Square buzzed with tourists despite approaching storm clouds. Schuyler waited by the cathedral steps, dark sunglasses hiding her eyes. She wore jeans and a Saints t-shirt, trying to blend in. This is dangerous, I said, sitting beside her on the bench. More dangerous than last night? Heat flooded my cheeks. Someone took photos. My campaign manager wants me to disappear you. Smart man. She removed her sunglasses, revealing exhausted eyes. My editor's pushing the environmental story. Says I have 48 hours to deliver something substantial or he'll reassign it. To who? Someone without personal complications. We sat in loaded silence, watching street musicians perform for scattered crowds. The normalcy felt surreal against the chaos building in both our lives. I spoke with 3 sources this morning, Schuyler continued quietly. All confirmed irregularities in permit approvals. Companies with terrible safety records getting fast-track authorization. And you think I'm involved? I think you know more than you're saying. She turned to face me. The question is whether you'll trust me enough to explain. Trust goes both ways. You could destroy me with whatever you publish. I could. Her hand found mine on the bench. But what if I don't want to? The simple touch sent electricity through my entire body. Passers-by probably saw 2 women having a normal conversation. They couldn't see the war raging between my political survival and something deeper, more honest. Come with me tonight, I heard myself say. Where? Emergency shelter set up. I always visit during storms. Shows voters I'm engaged, caring. Lucy, bring your camera. Document the real work, not manufactured scandals. She studied my face carefully. What aren't you telling me? Maybe I want to show you who I really am, beyond the permits and politics. That's dangerous for both of us. Everything about this is dangerous. I squeezed her hand, but I'd rather face it with you than run from it alone. Thunder rumbled overhead as the first raindrops began falling. Tourists scattered for cover, but we remained on the bench, hands linked, watching the storm approach. Okay, she said finally. But Lucy? Yeah? If I find evidence of corruption, I have to report it, even if it means losing you. Her honesty cut deep but also inspired something like admiration. I know. And if these photos surface, then we deal with it together. She smiled for the first time that day, genuine and warm. Together sounds good. As we parted ways, I felt the ground shifting beneath everything I thought I knew about my life. The hurricane approaching Louisiana wasn't the only storm about to test every foundation I'd built. Hurricane Delilah made landfall at 11 p.m. with Category 4 winds. The emergency shelter at Riverside High School filled beyond capacity. Families huddled on cots, children crying, elderly residents clutching photo albums and medications. I moved through the gymnasium with practiced calm, shaking hands and offering reassurances I wasn't sure I believed. Senator Turner? Mrs. Rodriguez grabbed my arm. My grandson's asthma inhaler ran out. The pharmacy's closed. We'll get him another one. I radioed the medical team immediately. Crisis management meant solving problems fast, no bureaucracy. Skylar documented everything through her camera lens. She'd arrived an hour ago with press credentials, maintaining professional distance while I worked. But I caught her watching me with those green eyes, studying how I interacted with constituents. At midnight, the power died. Emergency lighting kicked in for 30 seconds, then failed. Complete darkness swallowed 300 people. Children screamed. Adults called for loved ones. Only the howling wind outside broke the human chaos. Everyone stay calm, I called into the blackness. We have flashlights and backup power coming online. But backup power never came. Something had catastrophically failed, leaving us trapped in darkness while winds reached 140 miles per hour. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight, finding familiar faces in the weak glow. The generator building was separate from the main shelter, probably flooded by now. We were stuck until morning. Lucy. Skylar's voice materialized beside me. The radio says the storm stalled offshore. We could have hours of this. Then we make the best of it. I addressed the crowd. We're safe inside. The building is solid. Let's use this time to know each other better. Someone started singing hymns. Others joined in, voices creating comfort in the darkness. I found myself sitting on the gymnasium floor next to Skylar, sharing a bottle of water with strangers. Tell me about your first storm, she whispered. Katrina. I was a city councilwoman, helping coordinate evacuations. My voice dropped to match hers. Scariest 48 hours of my life. Made me realize politics isn't about winning elections. It's about being useful when everything falls apart. Is that why you run? Partly. In the darkness, honesty came easier. Also because my daddy said women couldn't lead. Spent my whole life proving him wrong. Sounds lonely. It was. I found her hand in the darkness. Until recently. Her fingers intertwined with mine, warm and steady. Around us, conversations continued in hushed tones. Families sharing stories, fears, hopes. The storm outside felt distant compared to this unexpected intimacy. I've never been afraid of anything, Skylar said quietly. War zones, natural disasters, corrupt governments. But this scares me. The storm? Her thumb traced circles on my palm. I've spent 10 years keeping emotional distance from stories. It's how I survive what I see. And now? Now I can't be objective about you. Don't want to be. Lightning illuminated the windows briefly, showing her face in stark relief. Beautiful, vulnerable, afraid. Everything I felt reflected in her expression. Come here, I whispered. She moved closer until our shoulders touched, her head resting against mine. We sat like that for an hour, hands linked, listening to wind and rain, and the quiet conversations of people facing uncertainty together. Lucy? Her breath was warm against my ear. When I was in Syria, covering the refugee crisis, I interviewed this woman who'd lost everything. Her house, her husband, her children's school. But she said something I never forgot. What? That love isn't about perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It's about choosing someone when the world is falling apart. My heart stopped. Skylar, the world feels pretty chaotic right now. It does. I choose you. The words hung in the darkness like a promise. Around us, families slept fitfully on gymnasium floors. Outside, nature unleashed its fury. But in this small space between us, everything felt possible. I turned toward her, finding her lips by touch alone. The kiss was soft, tender, full of confession. Her hand cupped my face as I deepened the connection, tasting hope and commitment, and something that might be love. I choose you too, I whispered against her mouth. Dawn brought silence. The storm had moved inland, leaving behind flooded streets and scattered debris. Power remained out, but natural light streamed through high windows. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced to the stirring crowd. Hurricane Delilah has passed. Emergency crews are assessing damage now. You're safe to remain here until they clear the roads. Applause filled the gymnasium. Mrs. Rodriguez's grandson ran to show me his new inhaler, delivered by National Guard medics. Families packed belongings, sharing phone numbers and promises to stay in touch. Skylar packed her camera equipment methodically. Hell of a night. Professional assessment or personal observation? Both. She smiled, but something had changed in her expression. More serious, determined. I need to file my story. The human impact angle, not political scandal. And the corruption investigation? Still happening. But maybe there's room for nuance in how I approach it. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I still have to follow the facts wherever they lead. But her kiss goodbye carried promise, not threat. The morning after brought reporters to my front door like vultures. I peeked through my bedroom curtains at the news vans lined up along Magazine Street. At least 6 major outlets, photographers with telephoto lenses, and what looked like Johnson's campaign manager talking to the Times-Picayune editor. My phone had been ringing non-stop since 6 a.m. David's frantic voicemails mixed with interview requests and damage control meetings. The photos had leaked during my shelter appearance, creating maximum contrast between public service and private scandal. Channel 8's morning anchor was already spinning the narrative. Questions arise about Senator Turner's judgment during crisis, as romantic entanglement surfaces with unnamed journalist. Unnamed for now. They'd have Skylar's identity within hours. I dressed carefully in navy suit and pearls, armor for the battle ahead. 3 cups of coffee couldn't steady my hands as I reviewed David's crisis management script. Deny personal relationship. Focus on hurricane response. Redirect to opponent's environmental record. Standard political theater. Except nothing about Skylar felt standard. My phone buzzed with her name. I almost declined the call, but something in my chest cracked at the thought. How bad is it? She asked without preamble. Career-threatening. You? My editor called an hour ago. Network executives want to discuss my objectivity issues. Through the window, I watched a reporter practice her opening outside my gate. They know who you are? Not yet. But Johnson's people are digging. I have maybe 6 hours before my name goes public. 6 hours. After 20 years building political credibility, everything reduced to a countdown timer. We could still walk away, I said quietly. Issue separate statements about professional boundaries. Save both our careers. Silence stretched between us. In the background, I heard typing. Probably Skylar working on the corruption story that could destroy me regardless. Is that what you want? Her voice was carefully neutral. I want to protect you. That's not what I asked. I closed my eyes, remembering her hands in the darkness, her whispered choice echoing in the gymnasium. No, it's not what I want. Then we fight. Together? Together. 2 hours later, David burst into my office with printouts and barely controlled panic. They have security footage from the Capitol garage. Johnson's releasing it at his 2 o'clock press conference. What kind of footage? You and the cookwoman, kissing against your car after leaving the building. Heat and ice battled in my stomach. How clear? Clear enough. Face-on angle, good lighting, unmistakably intimate. I sank into my chair, mind racing through options. None looked promising. Political careers had survived corruption scandals, financial impropriety, even criminal charges. But moral judgment voters? That was different territory. Recommendations? Full denial. Security malfunction created misleading images. You were providing emotional support to a distraught journalist during crisis. That's ridiculous. That's politics. We control the narrative, or it controls us. My office door opened without knocking. Skylar entered wearing jeans and a determined expression, ignoring David's protests. We need to talk, she said. Ms. Cook, this is highly inappropriate. Out. I cut David off sharply. Give us 10 minutes. He left muttering about professional suicide and electoral mathematics. Skylar closed the door behind him, leaning against it like a barrier against the chaos outside. I found the source, she said without preamble. What source? The corruption story. Trace the environmental permit irregularities to 3 companies owned by the same shell corporation. She moved to my desk, spreading documents across its surface. Want to guess who's on the corporate board? My throat went dry. Who? Richard Johnson's brother-in-law, The permits weren't fast-tracked by your office. They were expedited through county-level approvals Johnson controlled as previous commission chair. The papers blurred as implications hit me. He's been setting me up for months, creating a paper trail suggesting senatorial influence while actually profiting from the expedited permits himself. Her green eyes blazed with investigative triumph. The photos, the anonymous tips, everything. Classic political sabotage. Can you prove it? Already have. Audio recordings of him coordinating the permit approvals, financial records showing payments to the shell companies, even emails discussing how to frame you for their activities. Relief and rage warred in my chest. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm about to publish it. Full exposé of Johnson's environmental corruption scheme, complete with evidence of manufactured scandal against his opponent. She moved around the desk, standing close enough that I could smell her shampoo. Professional distance abandoned, replaced by something fiercer, more personal. There's just one problem, she continued. Which is? Publishing this story outs our relationship anyway. I'll have to disclose potential conflicts of interest, explain how I got access to your office, detail the timeline of our involvement. So we're exposed either way. Yes. Her hand found mine. But this way, we're exposed telling the truth instead of running from it. I stood, pulling her closer until we were inches apart. Outside, reporters waited for scandal. Inside, this woman offered something I'd never experienced. Partnership based on honesty instead of political calculation. Are you sure about this? Your career will survive on merit instead of manufactured objectivity. She smiled, fierce and beautiful. Besides, exclusive corruption exposed Trump's romantic speculation every time. When our lips met, it felt like victory rather than surrender. Her mouth was warm, certain, claiming mine with confidence that made the external chaos irrelevant. I kissed her back with 20 years of suppressed authenticity, finally choosing truth over image management. Together? She whispered against my lips. Together. I held my press conference at 3 p.m., 1 hour after Johnson's dramatic revelation. The state capitol press room packed beyond capacity. Cameras from every major network, reporters squeezed into folding chairs, political operatives hovering near exits. David stood against the wall, face pale but determined after seeing Schuyler's evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, hands steady on the podium. I called this conference to address questions about my personal life and my professional integrity. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. They expected denials, evasions, standard political damage control. Instead, I'd decided on something revolutionary, complete honesty. Richard Johnson showed you photographs today suggesting improper behavior during our recent hurricane crisis. Let me be clear about the facts. I paused, meeting the cameras directly. I am in a personal relationship with journalist Schuyler Cook. We met during hurricane preparations, developed feelings during the emergency response, and yes, we've become romantically involved. The room exploded. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, political careers ended with simple truth. I raised my hand for silence. But that's not the real story here. The real story is why my opponent manufactured this scandal to distract from his own corruption. I nodded to David, who distributed Schuyler's evidence packets to every reporter present. Financial records, audio transcripts, email chains, proving Johnson's environmental permit scheme. While I was changing tires in hurricane weather and coordinating emergency shelters, Richard Johnson was selling Louisiana's environmental future to the highest bidders. These documents prove systematic corruption spanning 3 years. Chaos erupted again. Johnson's campaign manager pushed toward the exit as reporters flipped through damning evidence. My phone lit up with calls from supporters and opponents alike. Questions? I asked. Senator Turner, Channel 4's political reporter, stood. Are you coming out publicly? What about voter reaction in conservative Louisiana? I'm not coming out. I'm simply refusing to hide anymore. My voice carried across the sudden silence. Louisiana voters deserve representatives who tell the truth, especially when it's difficult. What about Ms. Cook's journalistic integrity? Schuyler Cook is one of the most ethical journalists I've ever met. She investigated corruption allegations against me thoroughly and independently. When she found the evidence led elsewhere, she followed facts over personal interest. 2 hours later, I found myself standing outside Skylar's hotel room, heart hammering against my ribs. The press conference had gone better than expected, but political survival meant nothing if I'd lost her in the process. She answered the door in bare feet and an oversized Saints jersey, laptop balanced on one arm. "How'd it go?" she asked, pulling me inside. "Either brilliant or catastrophic. Won't know until the polls come out tomorrow." And personally, I kicked off my heels, suddenly exhausted. "I feel like I can breathe for the first time in 20 years. She set the laptop aside, moving closer with that predatory grace I'd come to love. "No regrets? About coming out, about us, about choosing truth over political calculation?" I pulled her against me, reveling in her warmth. "None." Her kiss was fierce, celebratory, tasting like triumphant promises. I responded with months of suppressed desire, hands tangling in her brunette hair as she backed me toward the bed. "The network fired me," she whispered against my neck. I pulled back, searching her eyes. "What? Officially? Budget cuts? Unofficially? They don't want reporters personally involved with politicians they cover." "Skylar, I'm so sorry." "Don't be." Her smile was radiant. 3 networks called with job offers after your press conference. Apparently, exposing corruption plays better than manufactured objectivity. Relief flooded through me as her hands worked at my suit jacket buttons. "So we both survived? We both evolved." What followed was tender and passionate, 2 women claiming each other without pretense or political calculation. Her touch erased every doubt, every fear about choosing authenticity over image management. When she whispered my name in the darkness, it sounded like freedom. Later, we lay entwined watching election coverage on muted television. Early polling showed Johnson's support collapsing as corruption details dominated headlines. "Think you'll win?" Skylar traced patterns on my bare shoulder. "Think it matters? Career-wise?" Personally, I turned to face her. I spent 20 years building a political identity that required hiding who I really am. Win or lose, that's over now. And if you lose? Then I'll find another way to be useful. Maybe law practice, maybe teaching, maybe writing books with brilliant investigative journalists. She laughed, the sound rich and musical. "That might conflict with my objectivity requirements." "What requirements?" "You're unemployed, remember?" "Temporarily between positions." Her green eyes sparkled with mischief. "Besides, someone needs to keep investigating environmental corruption. Might take years of deep research." "Years?" "At least." Her kiss was soft, promising. "Hope you don't mind long-term projects." Outside, New Orleans hummed with late-night energy. Inside, we built something neither politics nor journalism could define or destroy. For the first time in my adult life, the future felt genuinely uncertain and absolutely perfect. "Together?" I whispered into the darkness. "Always." Election day dawned crisp and clear, autumn light filtering through my campaign headquarters windows. Volunteers moved with nervous energy, manning phone banks and coordinating poll watchers. The latest tracking numbers showed a dead heat, everything coming down to voter turnout and the corruption scandal's final impact. Skylar arrived at noon with coffee and croissants from our favorite cafe. 3 weeks of campaigning together had established routines, small intimacies that felt both natural and revolutionary. "Channel 6 wants an interview," she said, settling beside my desk. "Win or lose speech preparation. Confident in the outcome?" "Confident in you." Her smile carried warmth that had nothing to do with electoral politics. Louisiana voters appreciate authenticity when they see it. The phone bank erupted in cheers. Margaret, my longest-serving volunteer, waved poll results from Jefferson Parish. "We're up 12 points in suburban districts, Lucy. Corruption story really resonated." "And the conservative parishes?" "Closer, but holding." Turns out fiscal responsibility trumps moral judgment for most voters. Relief mixed with anxiety in my stomach. 20 years building political capital, risked on honesty, and a relationship that challenged every assumption about electability. David burst through the door with streaming election data. Early returns looking good. Johnson's base is fracturing over the corruption charges. How good? 54% with 60% reporting. His grin was infectious. Barring some catastrophic shift, you're going to win. The room exploded in celebration. Volunteers hugged, phones rang with congratulations. Someone started playing jazz music from a Bluetooth speaker. But I found myself looking past the chaos toward Skylar, whose green eyes held pride and something deeper. We stepped outside for air, October evening settling over New Orleans with gentle warmth. Campaign noise faded behind glass doors, leaving us alone on the French Quarter sidewalk. Feels surreal, I said. Victory usually does. Not victory. This. I gestured between us. 6 months ago I was convinced authentic relationships were incompatible with political survival. And now? Now I think political survival without authentic relationships isn't worth much. She moved closer, hands finding my waist, despite pedestrians and passing traffic. Think the voters agree? We'll know in 3 hours. But her kiss tasted like celebration already, soft and certain against my lips. I deepened the connection. 20 years of hidden desire transformed into public declaration. A tourist couple applauded from across the street. Senator Turner? A young reporter approached with microphone and cameraman. Channel 12 News. Can we get a statement about early returns? Of course. I straightened my blazer, switching into public mode. I'm cautiously optimistic about tonight's results, and incredibly grateful for Louisiana residents who chose reform over rhetoric. What about criticism of your personal choices during the campaign? Democracy works best when representatives bring their whole selves to public service. That includes personal integrity, authentic relationships, and the courage to challenge corruption wherever we find it. Are you planning to marry Miss Cook? Skylar's hand tightened around mine. We're focused on building Louisiana's future right now. Personal milestones will happen in their own time. The answer satisfied the reporter, who moved on to interview arriving supporters. But the question lingered, between us. Unspoken possibilities hanging in the evening air. Back inside, returns showed decisive victory. 56%, with 80% reporting, Johnson conceding with a brief statement about serving Louisiana's interests. The corruption charges had effectively ended his political career, while validating my gamble on transparency. Victory speech time, David announced, straightening his tie for the cameras. The Riverside Hotel ballroom overflowed with supporters, media, and curious onlookers. Families who'd sheltered with us during Hurricane Delilah, environmental activists celebrating Johnson's defeat, young voters inspired by authentic leadership. My fellow Louisianans, I began, voice carrying across the energized crowd. Tonight you chose courage over comfort, reform over rhetoric, truth over political calculation. Applause thundered through the space. I found Skylar near the stage, camera in hand but attention focused entirely on me. This victory belongs to everyone who believes public service means serving the public, not special interests. Who believes authentic leadership requires authentic people. More applause, genuine enthusiasm that felt different from typical political theater. And to those who questioned whether Louisiana was ready for leaders who bring their whole selves to office, tonight provides your answer. We are ready. We have always been ready. We just needed the courage to choose it. The crowd roared approval. I felt Skylar's pride from across the room, connection deeper than politics or professional success. Later, after interviews and thank yous and endless handshakes, we found ourselves alone in the hotel suite overlooking the Mississippi River. Campaign debris scattered across tables, victory roses wilting in champagne bottles. How does it feel? Skylar asked, settling beside me on the couch. Different than I expected. Bigger somehow. The victory? The possibilities. I turned to face her fully. 6 months ago, I was a careful politician managing image and expectations. Tonight, I'm a woman who chose love over fear, and somehow convinced 60,000 voters to do the same. Her eyes sparkled with understanding. Think Louisiana's ready for more authentic leadership? Think we're ready to find out together? She answered by claiming my mouth with fierce certainty, champagne's sweetness mingling with triumph and something that might be forever. Outside, New Orleans celebrated another election cycle. Inside, we celebrated something more revolutionary, the radical act of choosing truth in a world built on careful lies. 1 year later, the New Orleans waterfront buzzed with Reconstruction energy. I stood at the window of my Senate office, watching cranes rebuild hurricane-damaged piers. The city had recovered faster than anyone predicted, federal funding flowing through transparent processes that made corruption impossible. "You're staring again," Skylar said from behind my desk, laptop open to her latest investigative series. "Admiring the view. The harbor, or me?" "Both." I turned, taking in her professional focus as she refined another corruption exposé. The Pulitzer Committee had nominated her series on environmental crime for investigative reporting. "How's the story coming?" 3 more oil executives indicted yesterday. Turns out Johnson's scheme went deeper than we thought. Her independent journalism platform had become the gold standard for political accountability in Louisiana. Major networks competed for her content, while she maintained complete editorial freedom. "Dinner tonight?" I asked. "That new restaurant in the Garden District?" "Can't. Flying to D.C. tomorrow for congressional testimony about petroleum industry regulation. Rain check then." "Actually," she closed the laptop, expression shifting to something more serious. "I was hoping you'd come with me." "To Washington?" "To the testimony. And maybe a few other places while we're there." Something in her tone made me pause. "What kind of places?" "The kind where 2 women might make certain commitments official." My heart stopped. We'd talked around marriage for months, both careful not to pressure the timing. But hearing it stated directly sent electricity through my entire body. "Skylar Cook, are you proposing to me?" "I'm suggesting we stop dancing around the obvious." She stood, moving closer with that predatory grace I'd fallen for in a muddy roadside. "We've been building a life together for a year. Might be time to make it legal." "In Washington, D.C.? Anonymous ceremonies. No media circus. Just us and whatever witnesses we can find at City Hall." The simplicity was perfect. No political theater, no campaign considerations, just 2 women choosing each other for all the reasons that mattered. What about the voters? Conservative backlash? Political implications? "Lucy Turner." She took my hands, green eyes serious but warm. "When have we ever made decisions based on political implications?" She was right. Every major choice since that hurricane night had prioritized authenticity over calculation. The results spoke for themselves. Electoral victory, policy success, personal happiness beyond anything I'd imagined possible. "Besides," she continued, "Louisiana already knows who we are. Approval ratings suggest they like us better together than apart." 20 months of poll data supported her claim. Voters apparently preferred honest partnerships to careful single-status management. Amazing what truth could accomplish when given the chance. My phone buzzed with scheduling requests, budget meetings, endless senatorial obligations. The work would continue regardless of personal milestones, but somehow felt more meaningful with partnership supporting the effort. "Yes," I said quietly. "Yes to Washington or yes to marriage?" "Yes to everything." I pulled her closer, savoring her surprised smile. "Yes to taking that flight. Yes to D.C. ceremonies. Yes to making this official in every way that matters." Her kiss was celebration and promise combined, tasting like triumph and future possibilities. When we broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. Should we call David? Plan a proper political announcement? Absolutely not. My laugh surprised me with its genuine joy. This is ours, not theirs. Let the media figure it out afterward. 3 days later, we stood in a small D.C. courthouse with Margaret as witness and a jazz musician Skylar had befriended as photographer. Nothing elaborate or staged, just 2 women making promises that transcended political categories. The judge, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, smiled as we exchanged simple gold bands. "By the power vested in me by the District of Columbia, I now pronounce you married. You may kiss." Skylar's lips found mine with gentle certainty, sealing commitments we'd been honoring long before legal recognition. The kiss tasted like coming home after a lifetime of careful distance. That evening, we walked along the Potomac River as sunset painted the water gold and red. No press conferences, no political implications, just quiet celebration of choosing each other completely. Any regrets? Skylar asked, wedding ring catching the fading light. About marrying you? About coming out publicly? About choosing truth over political calculation? I stopped walking, turning to face her directly. None whatsoever. Even if it ends your national political aspirations? Especially then. My smile felt like freedom. Turns out authentic relationships matter more than ambitious careers. Think Louisiana agrees? Louisiana elected me because I stopped pretending to be someone else. Marriage doesn't change that equation. Her answering smile was radiant, full of love and shared understanding. We'd gambled everything on honesty and discovered something worth more than political success, partnership based on truth instead of careful performance. 6 months later, back in New Orleans, we attended the ribbon cutting for the new Hurricane Research Center, funded by environmental fines from Johnson's prosecution. Families affected by previous storms gathered with scientists and politicians, rebuilding stronger than before. "Senator Turner," a young reporter called out. "Any comment on speculation about your Senate re-to-election campaign?" "Ask me in 2 years," I replied, Skylar's hand warm in mine. "Right now, I'm focused on serving Louisiana effectively and building a marriage worth the wait." The reporter looked confused by the non-political answer, but the crowd applauded genuine priority setting over campaign positioning. That night, in our French Quarter apartment overlooking Jackson Square, we sat on the balcony sharing wine and watching tourists discover New Orleans magic. "Happy?" Skylar asked, curled against my shoulder. "Completely." I kissed her temple, tasting contentment I'd never imagined possible. "You. Ask me in 50 years. Deal." The future stretched ahead, uncertain but authentic, built on choices that prioritize truth over image management. Whatever came next, we'd face it together, honestly, with the radical courage that had transformed everything. Below us, New Orleans hummed with life, resilient and genuine, just like the love we'd chosen to build in its embrace.